Throughout history, there is a truth many have been taught not to see. Gospel music, born in devotion to God, was often carried by voices rejected by the very churches they uplifted. These artists gave far more than praise and harmony. They carried a burden few could imagine. A truth that, if exposed in the last century, would have stripped them of their choir robes, banished them from the sanctuary, and erased their legacy. They were gay, walking in faith, yet forced to live in silence. Once celebrated as divine voices that moved millions, they became unseen architects of history, shaping sacred music from the shadows. Haunted by fear, guilt, and sermons that condemned their very existence, they endured a pain few ever acknowledged. This is the untold and heartbreaking story of 19 gospel legends whose full lives and truths you were never meant to know. Sylvester, a gay angel caught between the church pews and the underground dance floor. Sylvester was a disco legend with a falsetto that seemed to defy gravity, and one of the first openly LGBT icons to live his truth in an era soaked in prejudice. Before he ruled the world with "You Make Me Feel Mighty Real," his voice first rose inside the Love Center Church choir, where it was praised as a gift from God. But behind the flicker of candles lay a life marked by shame, fear, and quiet devastation for loving wrong. From childhood, Sylvester was punished by both family and faith for his queerness. He loved dresses, lipstick, and freedom, but each discovery brought beatings, threats, and bans from singing. He learned to fracture himself. By day, he was the obedient boy of God. By night, he became a rising force in San Francisco's underground gay scene, gliding across stages in silk gowns and wigs, his voice hypnotic and defiant. Then came Forbidden Love. In 1973, Sylvester fell for Darnell, a church organist. They met in secrecy, stealing moments after dark, knowing discovery meant ruin. When they were found out, Darnell was fired. Sylvester was interrogated like a sinner on trial. That same night, Darnell disappeared, leaving behind a note that shattered him. "There is no place for us in this world." Years later, Sylvester erupted into disco superstardom. He no longer asked permission to wear dresses or love men. He stopped hiding. But freedom came at a cost: estrangement from his church, his family, and a society that celebrated his voice while rejecting his soul. In 1985, diagnosed with HIV, Sylvester continued to take the stage, radiant and fearless. At his final performance, he collapsed into his lover's arms and whispered, "This time, no more hiding." Sister Rosetta Tharpe, a pioneer of rock and roll, yet a love buried beneath a carefully staged lie. With an electric guitar blazing and a voice that shook church walls, she laid the groundwork for modern music, earning the reverence of legends like Elvis Presley and Johnny Cash. Rosetta shattered the boundaries of gospel, turning sacred sound into raw fire. But behind the spotlight and the praise, her private life unfolded as a quiet tragedy. The world refused to see her deepest truth, a forbidden love with fellow singer Marie Knight, denied, erased, and never spoken aloud. In 1946, at the peak of Rosetta's fame, Marie entered her life like a storm. They met at a New Jersey show, Marie young, radiant, and sweet-voiced, Rosetta commanding the stage, powerful and untouchable. After a handful of performances, they began touring together, sharing hotel rooms, living almost as one. They were inseparable and everyone noticed. Whispers spread through the gospel circuit. Backstage glances lingered too long. Some claimed they saw tender embraces in the shadows. Others overheard heated, jealous arguments behind closed doors. Still, no one dared say the truth. Rosetta was God's warrior. Marie was a rising star. If their secret surfaced, everything would be destroyed. Rosetta understood the risk all too well. As a black woman in a rigid, religious world, loving another woman was not just forbidden. It was dangerous, sinful, even criminal. In 1951, she made her choice. Rosetta staged a public wedding to Russell Morrison, a lavish spectacle performed in a packed stadium. The celebration was grand, but the love was hollow. Marie watched from backstage as Rosetta, dressed in white, buried her heart in front of thousands. After that night, Marie vanished from her life, entering a marriage of her own. What they shared ended not with closure, but with silence. Rosetta continued to perform, wearing the mask of the perfect woman. Yet something essential had gone dim. In her final years, she lived quietly, impoverished, weakened by illness and an unspoken grief. It was the slow agony of a woman forced to abandon her true self to satisfy the world, and a legend who paid for her brilliance with her freedom. Inez Andrews. Gospel royalty with a life divided by sacred stages and silent hotel rooms. Inez Andrews was a voice that moved thousands to tears every Sunday morning. As the powerhouse singer of the Caravans, she became one of the most influential women in American gospel history, praised for her fire, her faith, and her unshakable devotion to God. For decades, she was celebrated as a symbol of holiness, the church's strong woman. But behind the radiant smile was a truth she carried alone her entire life. By the late 1950s, Inez began to sense feelings she could neither explain nor confess. The women around her stirred something deep and forbidden. In Memphis, in 1959, a single intimate night with a young female singer in her hotel room shattered the image she had fought to protect. By morning, the woman was gone, and Inez stepped into a life lived half in shadow, half in silence. She married, but only as a shield. Her husband existed mostly on paper, a name attached to church-approved photographs. Behind the curtain, Inez cautiously sought comfort with women, always discreet, always afraid. Her deepest connection was with Clarice, a music producer from Georgia. They met in secret a few times a month, exchanged letters, and never dared to go public. When Clarice's husband discovered one of those letters, he beat her brutally, breaking her bones, and their meetings ended forever. In 1968, everything nearly collapsed when a member of the Caravans hinted to the press about the group's unholy, private lives. Inez was summoned before a religious council and interrogated relentlessly. With no proof, she denied everything, but afterward, she grew colder, more distant, quietly pulling away from long tours and public life. Her only comfort came through Clarice's rare, hidden letters. One simply read, "The church may not forgive, but God understands." When Inez Andrews died in 2012, Clarice's name and their love remained buried. It was a love that lived like a flame trapped in a jar, glowing, enduring, but never allowed to blaze. Marie Knight. Marie Knight was one of gospel music's most revered voices, beloved for her thunderous vocals and soul-stirring performances. On stage, she was the perfect counterpart to the legendary sister Rosetta Tharpe, the electric guitar pioneer who helped shape modern gospel. Together, they set Black churches across America ablaze. But behind the hallelujahs and spotlights lived a secret that haunted Marie for decades. In 1946, she met Rosetta Tharpe while touring across state lines, and from their very first rehearsal, something ignited. They became inseparable, singing side by side, sleeping on tour buses, sharing hotel rooms, even trading clothes. By night, their bond deepened into something unspoken yet undeniable: stolen glances, whispered words backstage, secret kisses hidden behind the image of close colleagues. They lived double lives, publicly praising God, privately loving in the shadows. As rumors rippled through the gospel world, backlash followed. Pastors protested. Churches closed their doors. Marie's career began to tremble under the weight of fear. While Rosetta stood defiant, Marie unraveled. In 1950, their partnership ended abruptly, no explanation, no goodbye. Those who knew understood the truth. Their love was never allowed to exist. A year later, Rosetta married. Soon after, Marie married a deeply devout man, as if trying to wash away suspicion. But the marriage was hollow, and every night only intensified her longing for Rosetta. Marie kept singing, yet her career never again reached its former heights. She withdrew into silence, refusing to speak of her private life. When Rosetta died in 1973, Marie did not attend the funeral. Instead, she sat alone, clutching an old guitar, crying until her voice was gone. She loved deeply, suffered quietly, and paid the price with a lifetime spent in the shadows. Clara Ward. Clara Ward, gospel royalty, a towering voice of faith, and a truth hidden far from the spotlight. Her name inspired awe across the Black gospel world as the radiant leader of the ward singers. She set churches ablaze nationwide, her thunderous vocals and fearless, emotional delivery redefining what sacred music could be. Clara wasn't just admired, she was revered, a pioneer, an icon, the uncrowned queen of gospel. Yet behind the soaring hymns and white robes lived a woman suffocating under a secret she could never speak aloud. Clara loved women, a forbidden truth in the rigid, church-bound world that crowned her a saint. Her first known love began in 1953 with Evelyn, a vibrant 21-year-old backup singer. After shows, they slipped away under the cover of prayer, disappearing into anonymous hotel rooms where, for a moment, Clara could breathe. That freedom ended abruptly in Savannah when her mother and manager, Gertrude Ward, caught them together. One silent hand held in the dark was enough. Evelyn was immediately expelled from the group. No explanations. No mercy. The romance died overnight. From then on, Clara mastered the art of survival through secrecy. On stage, she glowed, pure, holy, untouchable. Off stage, she buried every longing glance and stolen embrace, meeting the women she loved in shadows. A brief entanglement with a male drummer served as a public smokescreen, but whispers followed her. Pastors tightened control, separating rooms, watching closely. In 1958, tragedy shattered her. Clara's longtime lover, a female music producer, died in a car crash after a heated argument between them. Some said it was a death born of heartbreak. Clara unraveled, crying through a New Orleans tour, telling the world she had lost a dear friend. She was never allowed to say more. No one dared to ask. By the late 1960s, her body began to fail, heart pain, heavy medication, and a weakening voice. But beneath it all lay a deeper exhaustion, the cost of never living her truth. In 1972, she quietly said on television, "God loves us all, even if we're not the same." Churches turned cold. Clara retreated into silence. A year later, she collapsed on stage and died, carrying her greatest truth with her. The world mourned a gospel goddess. The women who loved her sat quietly at the back of her funeral, erased as if they had never existed. Everyone heard Clara Ward's voice, but no one truly heard the pain woven into every note. Alex Bradford, a gospel angel who shouted for God, yet never dared to cry out the name of the man he loved. An irreplaceable figure in American gospel history, Bradford stormed churches and recording studios with a voice that sounded like holy fire falling from the heavens. He composed, performed, and inspired legends such as Mahalia Jackson and Little Richard. His songs became sacred staples, and his electrifying presence earned him the reputation of a modern professor of spiritual gospel. But behind the hallelujahs lived a story rarely spoken aloud. Beginning in the late 1940s as a rising young artist, Bradford felt the crushing weight of church morality. A gesture held too long, a glance read the wrong way. Each was enough to spark whispers, warnings, and constant surveillance. By the early 1950s, while touring the South, he entered his first true relationship with a pianist named Leonard. They could never be open, yet everyone sensed the truth. In 1956, a hurried backstage kiss in Montgomery cost Leonard his job. Bradford was forced to sign a humiliating pledge of moral conduct, and from that moment on, he lived in half-light. He loved only in secrecy, meeting in discreet Harlem motels, speaking softly, leaving before sunrise. To shield himself, he invented a perfect companion named Deborah. For a decade, they appeared together in public, smiling for the world, strangers in private. When Deborah finally left to marry someone she truly loved, Bradford didn't object. He couldn't. The lie had never been fair to either of them. As the years passed, he grew more cautious, more alone. A near arrest during a police raid at a New York gay bar nearly erased everything he had built. That night, he collapsed in a bathroom, not from fear of jail, but from the terror that one headline could reduce his life's work to ashes. He thought about fleeing to Europe. Instead, he stayed. He kept singing about heaven, fully aware that, by the rules of his world, it was a place he was never meant to reach. In the end, Alex Bradford died quietly, just as he had lived, and just as he had loved. Wilmer "Little Axe" Broadnax was a giant of Black American gospel music, one of the defining voices of its golden age. As a core member of the Spirit of Memphis Quartet and later the Fairfield Four, his soaring tenor, commanding stage presence, and unmistakably masculine style made him unforgettable. To audiences, he was the picture of confidence and spiritual power. But behind the hallelujahs, Broadnax carried a secret that could have destroyed everything. Born female, he lived his entire life as a man, and no one ever suspected. In the 1940s, he carefully constructed the persona of a small but formidable performer. Impeccably dressed, soft-spoken, emotionally guarded, and deliberately distant. Every step of his career required precision, evasions rehearsed, truths concealed, and a performance that never slipped. Exposure wouldn't have meant scandal alone. It would have cost him his livelihood, his dignity, and his place in a community fiercely hostile to gender nonconformity. Broadnax loved women, but always in secret. His relationships were hidden behind the guise of professional closeness. Letters exchanged in private, stolen moments backstage, nights spent together in cheap roadside motels while on tour. His most painful love was Darlene Jenkins, a young singer who toured with him in 1958. Darlene knew Wilmer's truth, but loving openly in that era meant risking total ruin. Their relationship survived only a few desperate years before a bandmate caught Wilmer changing backstage. The proof was undeniable. He was immediately removed from performances, while Darlene was sent back to Baton Rouge by her family and erased from the story. The group quietly buried the truth, protecting the brand that still brought them profit. It wasn't until Broadnax's death in 1992, after a mysterious altercation with his brother, that the secret finally surfaced. The revelation shocked the world. Some admirers turned away in discomfort, but to a new generation, Wilmer "Little Axe" Broadnax emerged as something more than a gospel legend. A symbol of courage, a person who lived as authentically as he could in a society that refused to let him exist. James Cleveland, the undisputed king of gospel music, and the secrets that shadowed his glory. To the world, James Cleveland was an untouchable monument in American gospel. He founded the Gospel Music Workshop of America, mentored generations of artists, and helped carry sacred music onto national television, even shaping the sound of legends like Aretha Franklin. To many, he was a musical father and spiritual giant. But behind the pulpit, Cleveland carried a private life he never allowed into the light. On stage, he was a commanding pastor, leading choirs through thunderous hymns. Offstage, rumors followed him, whispers of intimate relationships with young male choir singers he guided under the banner of spiritual mentorship. Beginning in 1967, when a new vocalist joined his choir, Cleveland allegedly entered a series of carefully hidden relationships, often unfolding during Southern tours, where hotel rooms became quiet refuges from scrutiny. He never confirmed the rumors, yet they spread through Atlanta, Alabama, and New York. Some churches quietly removed him from their sermon schedules. A newspaper once hinted at a major gospel figure hosting late-night gatherings with young men, then abruptly pulled the story. Cleveland never married. Men who lived with him were described as adopted sons, though some were believed to be partners. Harold, his longest companion, remained by his side for nearly a decade. In 1983, Harold contracted HIV and disappeared from Cleveland's life. After that, the gospel titan seemed diminished, smiling less, coughing more, retreating from the press. By 1987, he was hospitalized with pneumonia and slowly vanished from public view. In 1991, James Cleveland died from complications related to AIDS. Days later, a former housemate accused him of abuse and of living a dangerous double life. The gospel world was shaken. A few defended him. Most stayed silent. His legacy fractured, his name fading from tributes, leaving behind only hushed conversations about a man who loved deeply, suffered quietly, and spent his life torn between faith and his truest self. Edwin Hawkins. Edwin Hawkins was more than a gospel legend. He was a revolutionary who carried sacred music beyond church walls and into the global spotlight. His timeless anthem "Oh Happy Day" shattered boundaries between gospel and mainstream culture, soaring up the Billboard charts and forever changing music history. Yet behind the applause and praise, Hawkins carried a secret he never dared name, a same-sex love hidden for more than half his life, a love that could never be fully lived. It began in Oakland in 1972. After a thunderous performance, Hawkins slipped quietly away from the crowd, avoiding lingering glances and backstage curiosity. He knew that if the wrong people saw who he truly was once the lights went down, everything he had built could unravel. As Oh Happy Day transformed him into the face of a new gospel generation, Hawkins found himself brushing against worlds the church forbade. In California's recording studios and free-spirited artistic circles, he crossed paths with figures like Sylvester, openly gay, defiant, and unapologetic. Hawkins admired him from a distance, torn between longing and fear. Then, in 1974, everything shifted. Marcus, a young and gifted musician, joined one of Hawkins' workshops and soon became his principal pianist. For 6 years, they lived, worked, and traveled side by side, inseparable in rhythm and routine. To the public, they were simply close collaborators. In truth, they shared something far deeper, something no one could ever know. Whispers began to circulate. Invitations from churches quietly dried up. Fans grew uneasy. By 1980, crushed by pressure and scrutiny, Hawkins severed ties with Marcus, who later openly loved another artist. Hawkins never spoke his name again, but those close to him said the separation nearly destroyed him. Afterward, Hawkins changed. His music took on a heavier, more restrained tone, the joy dimmed by restraint. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, he quietly supported LGBTQ artists and anonymously funded HIV and AIDS outreach centers, acts of compassion carried out in silence. He never married. He never had children. He never publicly loved. Only a devoted assistant remained by his side, loyal and unnamed. When Edwin Hawkins passed away, the world honored him as a gospel giant, but never heard of the love he buried or the decades he lived in fear and concealment. He sang of a happy day, but for him, that day never fully arrived. Carl Bean. From gospel star to branded betrayer, Carl Bean was once one of the brightest voices in black gospel music. With a voice that shook sanctuaries, an unshakable faith, and total devotion to the church, he became a featured name at Easter conferences across America. To the world, Carl seemed destined for the pulpit, born to serve God, born to sing his praise. What no one saw was how the very institution he loved nearly destroyed him, simply because he loved a man. In 1977, inside a Motown studio, Carl Bean stood frozen, fighting for breath. The song I Was Born This Way was about to be recorded. But this wasn't just a disco track. It was a confession, a protest, and a point of no return. Recording it meant abandoning the only safe world he'd ever known. That moment had been decades in the making. In 1963, Carl was a young singer in a Georgia gospel group when he was caught holding another man's hand in a hotel room. That single act was enough. He was expelled, labeled unfit for sacred music. He returned to Baltimore in silence, carrying a shame he was too afraid to name. From that night on, Carl lived in constant retreat, policing his voice, his gestures, his laughter, terrified that one wrong move would expose the truth he was forced to bury. In 1972, he met Leon, a gay jazz musician the church had already cast aside. They lived like husbands, but only behind closed doors. When Leon was hospitalized after a police raid on a gay bar, Carl visited him, not as a partner, but as a cousin. That lie shattered him. In that moment, Carl realized that silence was its own kind of death, a slow one. He walked away from gospel, chose disco, and finally sang his truth out loud. The backlash was merciless. Churches erased his name. His foster mother died without ever speaking of him again. He was branded a traitor, a fallen sheep, a warning to others. The industry turned him into a symbol he never asked to be, stripping away his complexity and pain. But Carl Bean did not break. From rejection, he built refuge. From exile, he founded a church for the forgotten, a sanctuary for those cast out for being themselves. Even while living in the shadows, Carl chose to become a light, guiding others forward with the very wounds that never fully healed. Yvette Flunder. Pastor Yvette Flunder once sang hymns to conceal a decade-long forbidden love. In the 1970s, she rose as a radiant force in gospel music, her voice soaring, her sermons electrifying. America's largest churches sought her out, and within the Black Christian community, she stood as a symbol of faith, discipline, and moral perfection. Yet behind the pulpit lived a woman burdened by secrets powerful enough to destroy everything she had built. Deep down, Yvette knew from her teenage years that she was different. A simple touch from a close friend made her heart race. Instead of compassion, she was hauled into a pastor's office, ordered to kneel, and prayed over as if possessed. No one asked her how she felt. They only told her to erase it. From that moment on, Yvette learned to survive in two worlds: revered spiritual leader by day, a woman quietly loving another woman by night, constantly haunted by fear of exposure. In Oakland, 1982, the sanctuary fell silent as Yvette stepped to the pulpit, Bible in hand. Her eyes briefly met Shirley Miller's in the front row, a single glance charged with years of unspoken truth. They had lived together since 1980, presenting themselves as devoted colleagues. In reality, they were partners, soulmates, everything love could be, except allowed. Whispers began after someone spotted them holding hands backstage. The final blow came in 1983, when photos of the two embracing on a beach found their way to gospel event organizers. A few images were all it took. Concerts were canceled. Churches shut their doors. A pastor who once praised her thundered from the pulpit about sins God would punish. Yvette broke. That night, she fled, wandering the streets in tears, stripped of purpose and belonging. But at her lowest point, she made a choice that would redefine her life. No more hiding. In 1984, she stood firm and declared, "I love the same sex, and I am not ashamed." The backlash was immediate: rejection, threats, isolation. Yet from that pain, something extraordinary emerged. In 1991, Yvette and Shirley founded City of Refuge, a church for those cast out by traditional faith. She was no longer just a pastor. She became a sanctuary, a survivor, a woman who dared to live honestly in a world that tried to erase her, and in doing so, gave others permission to live, love, and believe again. Donnie McClurkin. Donnie McClurkin. A same-sex love buried alive beneath the glow of church glory. Donnie McClurkin rose to become one of the most powerful voices in American gospel music. He won Grammy Awards, sold millions of records, and was celebrated as the embodiment of faith, purity, and devotion. His thunderous voice and soul-shaking worship songs carried him to the highest peaks of gospel stardom. Yet behind the lifted hands and holy lyrics lived a secret few ever imagined: a lifetime of suppressed same-sex love hidden deep in the shadows of the church. In New York, 1987, after setting a gospel convention on fire with his performance, Donnie stepped off stage to deafening applause. But while the crowd rejoiced, panic surged through him. His eyes met those of a man in the room, a longtime collaborator, someone he had sworn to forget. The feelings hadn't disappeared. They had only been forced underground. This wasn't the first time, nor would it be the last. Throughout the late 1980s, Donnie quietly entered several same-sex relationships, often with men within religious and musical circles. Their love existed in whispers, unsigned letters, fleeting touches after prayer, stolen moments of connection. And every time love began to grow, fear followed. Donnie plunged into confession, fasting, and emotional self-punishment. He entered ex-gay programs, severed ties with lovers, and submitted himself to masculinity restoration therapies, convinced that desire itself was a sin to be erased. Amid this inner war, he wrote what would become his biggest hit. But beneath its faith-filled melody lived a man breaking apart. By the early 1990s, exhausted from denying who he was, Donnie signed major record deals and became the polished face of modern gospel. To protect that image, he remained single, erased his past, and buried every trace of his former loves. Then in 2002, he stunned the world by declaring that he was once gay, but had been healed by God. The reaction was explosive. Churches applauded. The LGBTQ community mourned and protested. Donnie was praised as a miracle, yet trapped in a role he could never escape. He never married. No woman ever entered his story. His life became a testimony not of freedom, but of sacrifice. Week after week, he stood before the cross, praying not for forgiveness of great sins, but for strength to keep silencing his truest self, so the church would continue to accept him. Vicky Yohe. Vicky Yohe, the haunting secret behind the hymns that once brought entire churches to their knees. In the 1990s, she was a towering force in gospel music, her voice leaving thousands in tears with "Because of Who You Are." More than a singer, Vicky became a symbol of devotion, praised on the grand stages of Southern churches, her name synonymous with faith and reverence. But behind that holy image lived a woman torn in two, caught between a longing to love and a terror of eternal damnation. Nashville, 1997. Under glittering lights and thunderous applause, Vicky sat at the piano during a sacred concert. Yet her heart wasn't racing because of the music. It was a woman's gaze backstage that unsettled her soul in that most sanctified moment. Unseen by all, Vicky was living a forbidden love. It lasted 6 secretive years, born in early morning rehearsals and stretched into late nights on tour buses. Hands brushing, cheeks grazing, stolen moments wrapped in silence. Even as her heart soared, she convinced herself this love was sinful. Desperate to outrun herself, Vicky entered a righteous marriage with a fellow devout musician. Together, they smiled from church magazine covers and stood side by side at pulpits, an immaculate portrait masking a fractured truth. Her husband's frequent absences only deepened the ache. The secret meetings continued, carefully hidden, including tours that mysteriously passed through Atlanta, where her lover waited. In 2002, Vicky disappeared for 3 days with her former flame. She returned exhausted, eyes swollen, her voice shaking like an unspoken confession. Trapped in a merciless cycle of faith and self-betrayal, she swung between love and torment, fasting, prayer, repentance, relapse. Leaked diary pages later exposed her anguish. She wrote that she was only permitted to love God, never a woman. By 2010, whispers became storms. Major churches quietly canceled contracts. Former colleagues hinted that faith had been used to conceal desire. Vicky never responded. She simply faded from the grand stages that once celebrated her. Albertina Walker. Albertina Walker. A silent love behind the stage, and a truth gospel music was never ready to say out loud. Albertina Walker stands as a pillar of American gospel history. She founded the Caravans, launched the careers of countless legends, and earned her crown as the Queen of Gospel through a career that stretched more than 50 years. Yet beneath the flowing robes and soul-lifting hymns lived a story kept hidden for decades. From the group's formation in 1951, Albertina shared a quiet, deeply felt romance with Inez Andrews. Their voices shook churches, but their love was never spoken. Every lingering touch backstage, every stolen glance after a show, became its own confession. They were nearly discovered once in Memphis, and afterward lived with constant fear, masking their bond even more carefully. When Inez later married, Albertina was devastated. She chose silence, building a spotless image of virtue and devotion. She never publicly came out, yet she never truly denied who she was, quietly shielding others like her until the end. As she lay dying, a woman sat beside her, softly singing. Albertina said nothing, but in that final moment, her life spoke for her. Kevin Terry. Kevin Terry, the gospel prodigy undone by a 2-minute clip. Once celebrated as a rising force in modern gospel, his voice could still entire congregations, leading the acclaimed group Predestined through major churches across the East. Then, on a cold day in 2014, everything collapsed in less than 2 minutes. A grainy, secretly recorded video surfaced online, appearing to show Terry in what church leaders condemned as a forbidden encounter with another man. No names were confirmed, no proof officially acknowledged, yet everyone said it was him. Within hours, his name vanished from festival lineups. His home church cast him out. Predestined disbanded, his marriage unraveled, and Terry disappeared from public life. The footage itself likely dated back years. Between 2007 and 2010, he allegedly arranged discreet, technical assistance in hotels while on tour, men who later exited the industry but still hinted at anonymous, unspoken relationships. In 2011, he married in an attempt to silence the rumors, a union many believe was never truly lived. When the scandal resurfaced in 2016, Terry neither defended himself nor apologized. He simply vanished, only to quietly re-emerge under a pseudonym, writing secular music like someone who had already lost everything and had nothing left to fear. Lazarus Lynch, once the church's golden boy, made an earth-shaking confession on a Brooklyn stage. As the lead tenor of a famed Harlem choir, he was gospel royalty, a symbol of faith and purity whose gut-wrenching voice moved thousands. But behind the praise was a private hell the church itself created, suffocating him with guilt and shame. In 2007, after being discovered harboring feelings for another boy at a gospel camp, Lazarus was quietly cast out, forced into prayer sessions to cast out demons, erased from performances, and pushed into silence. From that moment on, he lived two lives, singing hymns by day, and by night becoming Zari, a blazing queer performer in New York's underground clubs. His 5-year love affair with Malik, a homeless dancer, remained hidden, buried beneath fear and rejection. The breaking point came in 2017, when his father died and Lazarus was forbidden from bringing the man he loved to the funeral. It broke him. Then, in 2020, draped in a shimmering outfit, he stepped onto the stage and told the truth the world had denied him: "I'm gay." The song opened with familiar church chords, but the first line thundered, "God knows who I am, and He still lets me live." It wasn't just a performance, it was a war cry, shattering every lie he had ever been forced to survive. Thomas Gatling, the emotionally charged gospel singer, once hailed as a guardian of faith, standing quietly in the shadows of the church. His name became synonymous with American gospel music, the very soul of the Harlem Gospel Travelers. With a voice both warm and commanding, Gatling sang before thousands across the country, admired as a moral pillar, disciplined, God-fearing, untouched by scandal or sorrow. But beneath that saintly image lived a truth so heavy it nearly crushed him. In 2011, inside a church in the South Bronx, Gatling sat frozen as a pastor thundered sermons condemning same-sex love. Moments later, he stepped onto the stage to sing. No one knew that the night before he had fallen asleep beside Elijah, his roommate, his partner, the man he loved with quiet desperation. Since 2009, their relationship had grown in secrecy, hidden behind polite smiles and rehearsed handshakes. In 2013, Elijah walked away, shattered by public rejection. Yet Gatling's deepest wound came later. In 2016, church leaders forced him to sign a humiliating pledge, demanding silence about who he truly was. 2 years after that, the weight became unbearable. During a live stream, Gatling finally spoke the words that changed everything: "God loves me, even when I love men." The room went still. Then, from the crowd, a stranger broke down in tears and cried out, "Me too." From that moment on, Gatling chose truth over fear. Despite threats and backlash, he vowed to live openly, using his music as a defiant hymn against the institution that once tried to erase him. Music may reach the heart, but truth shakes the soul. These gospel legends didn't just sing with their voices. They sang through lives silenced, fractured, and reborn after relentless rejection. Which name in this video changed how you see them? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective. And if you want more untold stories from music icons, don't forget to subscribe. There are many more secrets waiting to be revealed.